Welcome, everyone, to this week's interview. Today, I'm sitting down with Jennifer Wilson, aka NASCAR Sammy's mom. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great myself.
Great. Good.
I guess jumping into it, we had Sammy on last year, and we kind of had his intro into the world of racing. But for you, growing up, were you a huge NASCAR fan, or is that something that came along with Sammy, or?
Really, it came along with Sammy when I was little. We watched IndyCar races. My dad was a big IndyCar person and grew up with, and I don't remember NASCAR being on TV. I guess it was. I just
Mhm.
never saw it. I think I knew who Richard Petty was or somebody like that. Bobby Allison. I knew who they were. No, we didn't watch NASCAR at all. We didn't. I didn't watch the car until, in fact, pretty much when Sammy kind of clicked it on TV and kind of got interested in it several years back. And then it kind of became our world, it seems like,
Mhm.
in many ways. But he loved it so much. And we just kind of, my husband and I both just kind of followed along, and it's what he liked. And we found something that he really enjoyed. So we just kind of went all in with it, and we learned everything with him about it, and the truck series and the cup series and the Xfinity, or I think it was
Mhm.
nationwide then. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, so kind of learned it all with him. Actually, became our hobby because of him. Yeah,
It's
pretty much
awesome.
that way.
Sammy has been very open, about how NASCAR has helped him. And as a parent, what was it like seeing your son take that interest in the sport, as well as take that step into, spreading positivity and all the work he's done to spread awareness for those with autism?
Well, to start with, I think for me with the taking the interest in NASCAR, he really took a big interest in it. We took him to a race. He really liked the racetrack. When we took him the first time we took him to the Chicagoland Speedway, he met Kyle Busch, and it was like he enjoyed. It's like he had a new hope in him. He was homeschooled and he didn't have friends. He was young, and social skills are a very big challenge for him. So it was just, we decided to try something different, find some a path for him, and that was his failure. So with that, we started taking him to race after race, as much as we could. And he just was so happy that we met so many people along the way, with fans and media people and drivers and team owners and just people that work the track. And he had such a good time. And he was so
Mhm.
happy with it. So, his program just kind of like morphed out of that. One day we were sitting here and we were like, oh, we have cars he's collected over all these races he's collected. And I think it was rain delay with a Daytona race. Justin Haley won a Daytona race. It was that
Mhm.
race we started his program. We were like sitting around. He's like, well, how about we have a giveaway during the rain delay, And so we dug out a Justin Haley hero card and we gave that away on Twitter, and people liked it. And it seemed such a positive reaction from people. And we were just like, well, he just like, keep going, just do it again and again. And he started out doing that, and people seem to really like it. And and then he's like, we can talk a lot about autism doing this and explain a lot of things about it. Maybe people don't know what it is. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't know what it is, or don't understand, or have their own, ideas of what it is. And maybe he can help them understand a little more about it. But it's become a big, kind of a big, our life kind of going around with this, and
Mhm.
it's really been neat, and it's been a great experience for him. He's grown a lot doing this, and matured a lot, and learned a lot about people, and that's been a huge benefit for him. So in that way, it's been good for him. But I think he's reached a lot of people around the world. He hears from people with autistic children or
Mhm.
autistic adults, that relate to what's going on. And it makes them feel hopeful or just positive about the situation a little more than they did. And I think that's wonderful.
That's awesome. I know last year I was telling Sammy that for me growing up, there wasn't a lot of education or diving into that, the mental health. And you kind of think, oh well, it's one thing, or it's one of two things. But then you think about if the legs hurt, you don't just sit there and say, oh, it's a leg. You sit there and think, oh well, it could be a foot, could be a toe, could be
Right.
a muscle, could be. And
Right. Arteries. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Anything. That's right.
And I was like,
Right.
that's something to me, it's been really cool. Is like, it's like learning through him, as well as the place I work at, it gives an opportunity to kind of like learn and
Right.
understand, like, okay, it's not just a, here's one situation, it's every situation, one
Right.
little
Because it's
thing.
really essentially it's a behavioral profile of a person that classifies them as autistic. It's not, an illness or a disease or something like
Yeah.
that you would treat. And so that's why they talk about it being a spectrum or whatever you want to call it. It's just a cluster of personality traits basically, and everybody's going to have different traits, and nobody's the same. So there's no
Yeah.
classic example of what a person's going to be like. And the sensory issues are a big thing in a lot of autistic people. He has very few of those.
Hmm.
Even when he was young, he had very few of those. But then you have speech delays, and you have social communication understanding, and that personal language, like that body language that people just pick
Hmm.
up on automatically. That's a very hard challenge for him. So everybody's different, and I think that's a big thing that he's put out there, is that you
Yeah.
don't just lump everybody under the word autism and say they're all like this, because it's just so not how it is. And
Hmm.
it's helpful for employers or just people to get to know the person and see how they are, and just accept them how they are. But there's many things that can be done in the world for people as adults with autism, as
Yeah.
with employment and things. So yeah.
So Sammy's received a ton of support from not only the racing community, but from those outside of it as well. Did that outpouring, like, did it surprise you just to see how big of a reach this started taking
it,
or having?
it's been I guess yes, in a way. I'm not surprised that people are good and have good intentions and want to understand and learn things about other people. And but I'm surprised at how we, who went to a race, and we live in a small town, we don't know anybody in the racing community at all, and we were able to get acquainted with people and connect with people that were able to help spread all this. And we never really realized that's what it was going to lead into at the beginning, because we went to races for 2 or 3 years before we even started doing it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's spread all over. I mean, not just NASCAR. I mean, I'm really kind of surprised, how we've been able to connect with so many people. And he gets out here and he's like reaching out. William Shatner, tweets
Yeah.
him, or I'm just like, how does that happen? I don't know, but it's very nice to see that you can network somehow, from nowhere, and reach some of the most popular places in the world, and people help spread your message that way, just
Hmm.
because they've seen what you're doing and kind of help share your message. It's amazing to me that it's gone that far, and I don't know where it's going to go now. Keep going. So you never know where you're going to end
Hmm.
up. So he's moving today into his new little house too. So it's
Uh-huh.
and that's for Marcus, Lonis, and I mean, I guess technically he's NASCAR. That's how he found him, but it all started with that camper
Yeah.
giveaway during the COVID times, and then got the car, and it's just been a heck of a deal for him. So we never assumed any of this would happen, but
Hmm.
you can see how something starts from, the ground level, and kind of grows. And so many people are touched by what his message is. He gets
Hmm.
messages from countries all around the world, and it's amazing that we've gotten off of it, how far he's reached out to people, and
Yeah.
how touched people are by it. So yeah, it's surprising. I'll just say yes. It's surprising. Yeah.
um so that there are parents out there right now that who may be struggling to adjust, with having a child with autism. What advice would you give to them, who may be just trying to like look for some help or look for some guidance?
Well, it's hard to speak for other parents. Everybody kind of deals with things their own way. But for me as a parent, I'm sure me and my husband were both different, but for me, I think we suspected it. We knew, because I was in the medical field, and we kind of saw signs. he did every milestone on complete target except talking. And that was a big sign. But we didn't have him diagnosed until he was older, just because we knew, but we already had him in therapy and everything anyway. But I think when a parent gets a diagnosis for their child, is kind of a hard thing, especially if their child's young, because they just think, oh no, this is it. What are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to fix this or something? But if you talk to parents who have kids that are older now, and you see that is the kind of consensus generally, except there are cases where improvement, I mean, there's cases where people need care always. But there's a lot of therapy and there's a lot of hope that those therapies do help. But I think the biggest thing is to take your child and understand your child and see what your child likes and how they relate to things, how they relate to the world. Look at how they relate to people on the way they do it, and then find ways that you can relate to them in that same way and build their skills from the way they function. Don't try to get them to do things like a non-autistic person does, because they're not a non-autistic person and they're not going to understand it necessarily. I just think that it's so important to, teach your child in the way they learn, not the way you think that everybody else learns, because that's the only way you can kind of get through to them. And then once you start building those connections with them, then you kind of grow those things out. For us, it's worked that way. We've learned to use, examples in the world. We see people doing certain things or doing something like someone's whatever, you kind of have to know your child and just, it's just kind of hard to explain, but you just can't give up on it either, because there's so much potential you just don't realize. And as it goes along, you start to see that you just have to incrementally. We homeschooled Sammy because we knew that if you put him in school, that he's going to be bullied because he couldn't talk well, he couldn't communicate well when he was very little, he wasn't socially, and he was kind of awkward then, and it was hard for him. So we just thought he's going to be bullied the whole time he's in school, so we just homeschooled them. And then we found what he liked and how he liked to do it, and then we went from there and just built one little bit at a time. I don't know how else, and don't get a diagnosis of autism with your child and think, oh no, this is the end of the world, because it's certainly not. Don't look 40 years down the road, what's going to happen. I kind of tended to do that when he was little, and that's just useless because we're nowhere I thought we would be. So, we didn't really do a lot of the things that, the therapist told us when he was little, put him in school and just flooding with other kids. And we kind of did the opposite of that, because we know that kids that are different are bullied. And we know that kids that are bullied grow up to be emotionally, overwhelmed by those feelings. They're depressed. They feel isolated. They are isolated. And they may feel hopeless. And, it can be a bad situation for them. We just decided, I didn't work, I stayed home, and we did it how we felt was best for him. We read a lot, talked to all kinds of people all the time, and always doubted everything we did. But it's just, you have to just know your child and raise your child the way they are, not worry about what everybody else thinks. I mean, people are going to take their child across the country, NASCAR races all the time. And, we homeschooled, which was good for that. But it's just, you sacrifice things, you do things for your child, and it pays off. And then your child can have a happy, content adult life. That's independence is the biggest goal, and you work for that all you can in any way you can, no matter how people judge what your decisions are and how you do it. You just do it because you know what's right for your child.
That's awesome. And finally, we've been ending all of our interviews this year with what's your favorite NASCAR paint scheme?
That's fine. Well, my favorite paint scheme of all time. Well, Sammy had a car last year, the Good Sam car. NASCAR Marcus Mona. Did you see that car?
Yeah.
When he raised the green flag last year at Atlanta, he also had the car.
Oh, okay.
So that would be my car. It was a good Sam. Marcus had a tweet on Twitter, like, tell me about a kind of car you'd like to have, paint scheme you'd like to see. And then he wrote that he wanted to, we put a NASCAR Sammy car and Autism Speaks NASCAR Sammy Camping World combo car.
Yeah.
So Marcus responded and said he had to have 100 retweets or 1,000 retweets, and he would make that car. So it took about 3 hours and he got 1,000 retweets. And then I think it was a few months. I think that was in February or March when he had that on there. And then he came and to the the Quaker State 400 last summer at Atlanta, and he was the, what is it called? Not the Grand Marshal, but the flag person. I'm not sure what you call it.
Starter.
Yeah, honorary starter. Yeah, we camped there, just camped. We had a really good time. But he had that Good Sam car there. But my other favorite car, well, Kyle Busch, of course, we like his cars, but my favorite car of all time was Casey Kane had this Aquafina car.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that car? It was beautiful, blue and white, and he wrecked like on the 3rd or 4th lap. I'm like, that car is demolished, but it was the prettiest car I've ever seen. It was like a really pale blue, and we were actually, Sammy was a Casey Kane fan, I think. Maybe then he was a Casey Kane fan originally at the very beginning. But that car was always my favorite car. And then he drove it right into the wall. And I was like, good grief, it was totaled. But yeah, I like the Skittles car. I like the Interstate Batteries, that green car that Kyle has now. That really nice, bright kind of green car. But so, I mean, overall, I guess I have to say that the Good Sam red NASCAR Sammy Autism Awareness car was my favorite paint scheme of all time. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, it's been really cool to see NASCAR Sammy, all the stuff like he's doing with his spreading positivity, the giveaways, and it's awesome to see like parents when they jump all in and help support their kids with these initiatives and all. So I really appreciate
we are
it.
all in. We're all in for whatever he wants to do. We are here to do it. So we want him to be a happy guy, and so it's working out well for him. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.